It's 10 o'clock. This is Sky News at 10, our top story. 2 people are killed in Kyiv as the Ukrainian capital is hit by a wave of Russian strikes. It comes as Volodymyr Zelensky arrives in Canada on his way for peace talks with Donald Trump.
We need to stop this war in any way, and we need 2 things, pressure on Russia and sufficient strong support for Ukraine.
Plans to offer a military training gap year to under 25s to get more young people interested in joining the armed forces. 3 people remain unaccounted for after a house fire in Gloucestershire. A state of emergency is declared as New York braces for its biggest snowstorm in years. And England win their first Ashes test in Australia for 15 years after just 2 days of cricket. Plus, we'll take a first look at tomorrow's front pages in our press preview from 10:30. Good evening. Ukrainian officials say at least 2 people have been killed and more than 20 injured after a series of Russian airstrikes on the capital, Kyiv. Around 500,000 homes in the city are currently without power following the attack. And it comes as Volodymyr Zelensky heads to Florida to meet with President Trump for key talks on ending the war with Russia. On his way there, the Ukrainian leader has stopped in Canada and met Prime Minister Mark Carney, who has pledged $2.5 billion in support for Ukraine's war effort. Well, let's look now at the current state of the conflict. Russia controls 3/4 of the Donetsk region and almost all of neighboring Luhansk, known altogether as the Donbass. Moscow wants to maintain its control of the area and parts of the region it hasn't taken as part of any peace deal. This week, President Zelensky outlined a 20-point plan agreed with the U.S. It includes security guarantees for Ukraine in the style of NATO's Article 5, where member countries consider an attack on one member as an attack on all. It also suggests Ukraine would keep its army at 800,000 personnel, despite earlier suggestions it would downsize its army after the war ended. The framework also allows for the Donbass to be demilitarized or to become a free economic zone, as long as Russia militarily withdraws from an equivalent area of its own land. Russia is unlikely to agree. Key sticking points include Russian opposition to any path for Ukraine to NATO membership and its demand for a total Ukrainian withdrawal from the entire Donbass region. There's also the question of who would control Ukraine's Zaporizhia's nuclear power plant, which is currently occupied by Russia. Our Europe correspondent, Alistair Bunkle, reports.
Russia rejected the offer of a Christmas truce and instead has been attacking Ukraine relentlessly. Overnight explosions were heard across the country and emergency services worked to rescue people trapped in buildings.
The
Russian Federation is sending a message that it is raising the stakes in this war, that it does not want to end this war, that it wants to engulf us in chaos, not only energy-related. It wants to intimidate us at the end of the 4th year of the war, and this is exactly what was done between our holidays, between Christmas and New Year.
Drones and missiles continue to strike Kyiv throughout the day. Residents were told to stay underground in bunkers. Russia claimed it was attacking energy infrastructure linked to the Ukrainian military, but the strikes have left 1/3 of the capital without power or heating and in freezing winter temperatures. The Polish military even scrambled jets to protect their border during the Russian attacks. However, there are no reports of missiles entering Poland or any other European country.
The windows started shaking and there was a hit on our house. Our windows overlooked the next house and we saw that the windows flew out and a fire started. We started evacuating. I can't believe that the whole world is seeing this and can't stop it. I heard a man burning and his scream is still in my ears. I can't believe it.
Volodymyr Zelensky has arrived in Canada this evening. He's meeting with the Prime Minister Mark Carney before he heads to the United States.
Last weeks we had good steps in diplomacy, but we can't live in illusion that it gives us possibility to have less air defense. With Russia it doesn't work.
Zelensky has also spoken to European leaders today before he meets with President Trump in Florida tomorrow to discuss a 20-point peace plan. But Trump is yet to endorse it, and Putin is yet to respond. Alistair Bunkle, Sky News.
Well, Russian President Vladimir Putin has been meeting his top generals today at a military command post and had this to say about ongoing peace talks.
We see that even today, unfortunately, the leaders of the Kyiv regime are not rushing to resolve this conflict by peaceful means. If Kyiv authorities are not willing to end the matter peacefully, we will achieve all the goals we have in the special military operation by military means.
The government is aiming to boost military recruitment by offering paid gap years in the armed forces. 150 people under the age of 25 will join the first scheme in March 2026. This would then be expanded to more than 1,000 placements per year going forwards. The Defence Secretary John Healey says the scheme will give Britain's young people a taste of the extraordinary skills and training on offer across the Army, Royal Navy and RAF. As young people discuss their futures, I want opportunities in our armed forces to be part of their conversation. Our political correspondent Rob Powell joins me now from Westminster. Rob, the numbers initially relatively small, 150 people joining in March of next year, but obviously something that the government hopes might expand.
Yeah, none of these so-called military gap years would involve active deployments. And of course, there's no guarantee that anyone that takes part in them actually goes on to serve full-time in the forces. It's more involved with training, learning leadership skills, team building skills, problem-solving skills as well, based on a scheme that they have in Australia, which in 2023 saw about 600 or so people sign up for it. About half of them stayed in the forces, but the government very much billing it as, yes, something to get people to think about a career in the military, but also a way to get young people the skills that they can then transfer into other walks of life as well. I think the reasons behind it are twofold. There is that primary issue of recruitment and retention that the armed forces are suffering from. There is also, I think, a particular issue the government wants to try and address involving employment among young people. We are hearing the Conservatives, though, today question about whether the numbers involved and the size of this scheme is really big enough to actually address either of those problems, which are pretty vast in scale. I think the second reason behind this, though, is broader, and it's linked to the degradation of stability in terms of security around the world, the threats being posed by countries like Russia to the UK as well. And I think it's an attempt by the government to sort of start a conversation about some of the trade-offs that might be required as instability grows around the world, essentially asking the question of all of us of what we might have to do if a more sort of traditional frontline version of war came to these shores once again. And I think in that respect, it's almost quite similar to that national service idea that Rishi Sunak pitched at the general election last year. There are differences. He did talk about there being a military placement element to that, but of course he said if young people didn't want to do that, they would be forced into doing community service type volunteering every weekend. But at the time, Labour roundly mocked that. Keir Starmer calling it a teenage dad's army. But the reasoning behind that was very similar. It was about trying to put back in those links between society and the armed forces in a world that was growing more unstable. I think ultimately the big pitfall in this new Labour plan could be the same one that was pointed out in that old Conservative plan. Will young people really want to do it?
Rob Powell with the latest on that from Westminster. Rob, thank you. New York City could see its highest level of snowfall in more than 3 years as a winter storm causes parts of the U.S. to be placed under a state of emergency. More than 1,600 flights were cancelled yesterday, as were at least 600 flights due to land or depart today, prompting post-Christmas travel chaos. Sky's Amelia Harper reports.
New York City is under a blanket of snow. Fire engines make their way through streets of slush. This the result of a major winter storm across the northeast of the United States. People are out scraping the pavements, preparing for the worst snow to hit the city in nearly 4 years. These snowplows have been continually clearing the roads, a state of emergency declared here and in neighbouring New Jersey.
We know many New Yorkers may be traveling for the holidays, so we want to ask them to limit travel on our roads during this time. If you must travel, use public transportation. And I want to be clear, the city is ready. DSNY, NYSEM, FDNY, NYPD, and DOT, and all our agencies have been working around the clock preparing for this winter weather system.
An hour's drive from New York City is Long Island.
All right, we are completely back to heavy snow at this point.
Locals film from their front doors as over 7 inches of snow falls around them. It could, though, reach up to 12.
Look at that. Really heavy snow coming down right now.
Nearly 5 hours south, Montgomery County looks the same. The street lamp illuminating the heavy snowfall. And directly north, another 5 hours away, snowplows are out in Rochester. Some drivers are attempting the roads behind it, despite being warned not to. Thousands of flights in and out of the northeast have been cancelled. Planes at Rochester International Airport disappear as they hit the runway. The passengers taking off on this Delta Airlines flight are some of the lucky ones. With dark skies and freezing temperatures, this won't be the white Christmas that anyone wanted. Amelia Harper, Sky News.
Bringing some of today's other news now, and 3 people are still unaccounted for following a house fire in Gloucestershire in the early hours of yesterday morning. Emergency services say efforts to locate them in Brimscombe Hill near Stroud are ongoing. One person who managed to escape the property was taken to hospital for treatment. At least 15 people have died after a bus plunged into a ravine on Guatemala's Inter-American Highway. The bus lost control and fell more than 100 meters during the crash on Boxing Day while it was traveling from Guatemala City. Emergency services took 2 hours to rescue the injured and retrieve the bodies. The country's president has declared 3 days of national mourning. An investigation has been launched after the wrong body was released for cremation from the NHS Greater Glasgow and Clyde mortuary to an undertaker. The issue was only identified after the body was cremated and was the result of human error. Both families concerned have been informed. Well, the medical director of Greater Glasgow and Clyde, Dr. Scott Davidson, has said, "I would like to offer my sincere apologies to both families affected. We have very rigorous processes for the identification and labelling of bodies from arrival in our mortuaries until their release into the care of an undertaker. It is of deep regret that these processes have not been adhered to on this occasion, and that as a result, 2 families have been caused significant additional distress at an already very difficult time. We launched an immediate investigation into this incident and will ensure that learning is applied." A new living history production at Hampton Court Palace is shining a light on the stories of the 1.4 million Indian soldiers who fought for Britain in the First World War. Sky's Amrit Singh Mann spoke to those involved in the production.
Don't be mistaken. This isn't the early 1900s. And these men are actors, not Indian soldiers. But the stories they're retelling once unfolded right here. At a place better known for Tudor kings, Hampton Court Palace is opening the door to a lesser-told chapter of its past.
The piece we've commissioned has until recently been an overlooked story.
Over 4,000 Indian troops visited the palace in the years surrounding the First World War for coronations, training and post-war celebrations. This production explores the conversations they might have shared, drawn from events that really took place, like an invitation for tea with the princess.
More tea! This country is obsessed with tea!
But while humour runs through the play, it doesn't shy away from difficult history. Like the Jallianwala Bagh massacre of 1919, when British troops opened fire on hundreds of Indian civilians.
So many killed for standing together in peace.
And this diamond, the Kohinoor, now housed at the Tower of London. Its ownership remains contested by critics who say it was taken from the Sikh Empire under colonial coercion.
The British took Punjab, and with it the Kohinoor diamond. It was apparently gifted to Queen Victoria.
How important was it to include those moments?
Vitally important. It would be odd to try and tell this story without addressing those topics. If we are looking at that particular moment and the lives of soldiers and their experience, it would be inauthentic not to address those issues.
There's a real sense of pride here, joy too, as these stories are given space on one of Britain's most historic grounds. And so for many watching, this is a moment of celebration. But for others, it's also a time of reflection.
Among them, Manpreet, a British Army reservist.
What I would really like to see is women being in the narrative rather than the footnotes. That would be really important. The stories are missing. We need to bring them back.
Inside the palace, a temporary exhibition showcases previously unseen objects, photographs and stories. Curator Tejpal has found pieces of his own family history here.
That's your great-grandfather there, isn't it?
That's right. Seated in the middle is Subedar Major Bawa Singh from the 23rd Sikh Pioneers, and his regiment came in 1902 for the Edward VII coronation.
And to see his photo displayed here in this exhibition, how does that make you feel?
It's almost indescribable in words. Because we didn't know about this photo, I discovered this photo through the National Archives, and to now have it on display, to share it with everybody else is so important.
Do you think the king even knows we're inside the Great Hall?
No. But one day, someone might.
More than a century on, the voices of those who crossed continents and cultures continue to echo the Great Hall. Amrit Singh Man, Sky News.
A German priest has discovered he is the grandson of Heinrich Himmler. The revelation came after he recognized a photograph of Himmler's mistress as his own grandmother. Siobhan Robbins went to speak to him.
Heinrich Himmler, one of the most powerful and feared Nazi leaders, Hitler's right-hand man, ruthless, fanatical, a mass murderer of Jews. So imagine discovering this monster was your grandfather. That's what happened to Henrik Lenkite, who told me about his shock online discovery that Himmler and his gran had an affair.
You see your grandmother on Wikipedia, it's like, what's going on here?
What, and it says there, Himmler's mistress?
Yeah, Himmler's
and you're
mistress,
seeing
yeah.
your grandmother's face?
Yeah, I keep reading and I see my uncle's name and I see my mother's name. And then I say, I'm confused and I say, like, what does it mean, you know?
How do you process that you're related to one of the biggest criminals in history?
How do you process? You don't.
What was your immediate visceral reaction?
Yeah, who am I? Who was I? Why wasn't I told the truth for 47 years? After 47 years, yeah, my life was like a lie, basically. Yeah, this is Hedwig, my grandmother.
When did she meet Himmler?
They confessed their love in 1938, so she met him around this time, yeah.
A convinced Nazi, Henrik's gran was working as Himmler's secretary when they started their relationship.
How has this changed the way you view your grandmother?
Yeah, she was a friendly person, but I've never thought that she could be the mistress of a mass murderer, and knowing that, of course, was a shock.
I read a report that she had a copy of Mein Kampf that was bound with human skin.
She knew. She knew. I think she knew everything. They were lovers, monster lovers. I even heard that she even encouraged Himmler to accelerate that. She was part of that regime, part of this system. How could she fall in love with such a monster?
Despite being married when he got Henrik's gran pregnant, Himmler believed he was spreading the master race and is named on Henrik's mum's birth certificate. So this is Himmler saying he's her dad, coming up, so she's not illegitimate.
Himmler is confirming that my mother is his daughter.
Was there anything in you that went, I know this man, the architect of the final solution, the embodiment of evil?
Yeah.
Did anything in you think, oh my God, have I got some of those genes?
Of course. You ask yourself, what is my inheritance from that?
Heinrich Himmler führte sie. The head of the SS death squad, Himmler was the principal architect of the Nazis' extermination camps, hellholes like Auschwitz, where millions of people, mainly Jews, were murdered. How do you view Himmler? Just out of interest.
Evil, monster, murderer, Nazi, mass murderer, even, all the bad things you can imagine. Demon, devil.
And then you have to put grandfather on the end
grandfather. Of it. Yeah, Hitler's deputy and grandfather, so he is my grandfather. I can't do anything about that.
While he can't change his heritage, Henrik wants to ask Himmler's victims for forgiveness and fully divorce himself from his grandfather's past. Siobhan Robbins, Sky News, Berlin.
England have won their first Ashes test in Australia in 15 years to get on the scoreboard at last in this year's series. The victory came inside 2 days in a remarkable match at Melbourne, which leaves Australia with a 3-1 lead with 1 match to go. Sky's Fraser Maud reports.
Despite 20 wickets falling on the first day at Melbourne, few would have predicted an England win in a controversial series where they've been a distant second best. But on a green-top wicket which favoured ball over bat, the fight back began. Thankfully, the England seamers and the wicket conspired to make short work of the Aussie batters.
Shane Warne, I don't think he would have thought that was acceptable, not having spin at all and having so much movement in the surface. It was farcical at times. There are traditionalists still in Test match cricket that likes the ebbs and flows and the slow build. That was not slow, that was cricket in fast forward, and we have enough of that.
With 175 needed, Ben Duckett and Zach Crawley set about achieving the seemingly unthinkable, a first win on Australian soil for 15 years. Bryden Carse's promotion to number 3 didn't work, but Jacob Bethel's recall did. And when the winning runs came off Harry Brooks' thigh, exhilaration and relief.
Awesome feeling. Been on a couple tours before where it's, not gone too well. So to end up on the right side of the result after a long period of time is a pretty special feeling.
Tough loss in the end. I thought England came out today and played some really good cricket. They got the ball in the right areas and, dismissed us.
The reaction to England's Ashes failings have been aggressive too, criticised for being underprepared, underperforming and even under the influence.
A couple of days building up to this Test match was obviously a difficult one for us, and the way in which the sort of leadership group and myself, Baz, the other coaches and the senior players were able to try and keep as much focus as possible on the cricket that was coming up was very important.
So the Ashes may be gone, but the whitewash has been avoided and history has been made. Fraser Maud, Sky News.
Let's get the rest of the sport now from Sky Sports News and Mark.
Staying connected is vital for business. Sky Business sponsors this report.
Sky Mobile sponsors the transfer window on Sky Sports News.
Right.
Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank was all smiles with his teammates today, but his future still seems somewhat uncertain.
Honest, I'm just sick and tired of this.
The number that was put before me was 50% more than our highest paid player at the time.
Jimmy had the feeling, do they really want me here?
My determination was not to sell Jimmy to that particular club.
It made me look bad in front of the fans. It was not necessary.
The biggest single challenge is how we managed his exit publicly, which probably Jimmy didn't like very much.
He's settling into his new surrounds. The player renamed Judas Floyd Money in the Bank when he was drummed out of Ellen Road.
Don't believe the figures at all. Don't believe the figures at all.
Reading the text last night, that was nothing about money from his agent. Well, Jesus, lads, honestly.
I just think he's greedy.
The perception that people have of me, the difficult person, blah, 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 never there. Sometimes things happen for a reason.
Another day, another summer signing. The delightfully named Gerald Floyd Hasselbank from Boa Vista. Jimmy to his pals.
Have you heard about people like Billy Bremner and Norman Hunter and things like that?
No.
You never heard of them?
No.
You'll find out about them.
Yeah, I will find out, but I never heard of them, no.
They tell me you put Jimmy. They call you Jimmy and that's it, is that right?
Yes, they call me Jimmy in Portugal and that's it. I think in the beginning of the season I'm gonna learn about English football. But I want to make the best of it and score so much goals as possible.
Well, he finished second top goal scorer in Portugal, so he looks as if he's a finisher, which we were lacking goals last season.
We'd been out to look at Bruno Ribeiro. We signed Bruno Ribeiro and Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank. It was £2 million and he was an unknown. And you think to yourself, you know, is that money well spent? Nobody had heard of him.
George Graham said to me, we've got to go down to Lisbon on the Sunday because we were going to watch this player. The player was Jimmy Hasselbank. I remember seeing him in a very run-down, low-key stadium. You knew straight away, you know, there was something there.
And I remember looking at the back of a bus. I was looking and going, who are them two? Because it said the new attack line for, you know, as I said, the men in white. You know, and they said, who are they? And I remember looking, and it was a picture of me and Jimmy. On the thing, I was like, oh my God. It took a while to adjust, but everyone saw he had one thing on his mind, and that was to score goals.
Hasselbank, who loves to hit them when he gets the chance. And he's steered it into the net for the equaliser. Hasselbank, who has a crack and scores!
Good effort! It's gone in! Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank has scored!
Oh, Hasselbank might get here before Schmeichel. Goal from Leeds United. Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank.
He had a natural ability to hit a ball very hard, and he had so much power. And when he controlled that power, he was like quite unstoppable.
We just realised we'd stumbled on a talent.
He's got that confidence about himself to be able to put himself out there. He wasn't shy from the get-go. We kind of made a good little pairing.
A club that I really, really liked. A city where I really, really enjoyed living. Where I've made now lots of friends. I really wanted to stay at Leeds.
Jimmy wasn't sort of shy at making his feelings clear on the QT, and I remember with a few of us journalists pulled him after a game. We were saying, oh, you know, what's going on? Will you be a Leeds player next season? And he basically just said, you can bank on the fact that I won't be a Leeds player.
Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank was all smiles with his teammates today, but his future still seems somewhat uncertain. One newspaper today suggests he feels he ought to be the best paid player at the club. His response to that is brief and to the point.
It is big time rubbish. Honest,
Sky Business sponsors this report.
And that was Sky News at 10. Coming up, we're going to take a first look at tomorrow's papers in the press preview. When we come back, I'll be joined by Theo Usherwood, news editor at the Press Association, and journalist and author Christina Patterson. Welcome both. Among the stories we'll be discussing this on the front of the Mirror. Their headline, Brits want to ban social media for kids. We'll be right back.